Greetings and salutations, folks, and welcome back to Life is Strange 2. As expected, the stay at the grandparents' was short. It wasn't made to last. Though I suppose I blame the kids a bit in regards to that. Like, you tell somebody to be hidden, and the first thing they do is they greet the kids in the backyard next door. Although the thing is, right when they stepped in the backyard, the kid was falling out of his treehouse to his apparent possible either death or horrible injury. So it's a little bit of happenstance that brought them to exposure, but they wouldn't have been caught.
I feel like a fake superhero.
If they didn't go to buy a Christmas tree.
Found out.
Well, you were a liar, so.
He had to find out anyway.
Yep.
Before he did something dangerous.
I know. I just feel sorry for him.
Don't be. No matter what happened, I think you guys will always be friends.
I hope. Sean. I'm tired of running away. I don't want to be a superhero anymore.
Yeah.
You have to use your power if you don't want to.
I know, but sometimes I can help,
And he
I
did
don't
help.
wanna use it.
Because
You can only trust your guts.
Because I figure if he didn't use his power to lift up the
Listen to your
bookcase,
brother.
then his grandpa would
see
definitely have
Grandma
been in
and
a
Grandpa again.
whole bunch of hurt.
I don't know. We'll see.
Where are we gonna go now?
Well, south to Mexico,
See
like your plan.
Mom?
No way, man.
Don't they have an
leave,
address?
okay?
No, they have a P.O. box.
She said she wanted to find us.
We stick to the plan. We go to Puerto Lobos. That's where we belong. No one will tell us what to do. We can be whoever we want.
You think? I don't know.
Trust me, man. From now on, we make our own rules. Look. I even got you a present.
Oh yeah, the present
Merry
that I
Christmas,
bought.
Nano.
For real? But it's in 2 weeks.
Who cares? Dates are boring. Here.
Also, it's not like you're gonna get any other present, so enjoy
Whoa.
this bear.
It's super cute.
Way cooler than that weird snowman-esque creature. Now,
Early Christmas is the best. Hey, I got something for you two. I wanted to finish it, but we're doing it now, so.
is that the sound of a train?
Man,
That's the sound of a train, of course.
that's so cool.
Hey.
Yep.
Listen.
There's our ride. Come on. All aboard.
And that train will also have, the woman along with her, friend and dog. No doubt. That is a very fast-moving train, so, good luck hopping aboard that one. Yeah. You know, I just realized I may have mistimed my exit from the last episode because I'm expecting this to be extremely, extremely short. Yeah. Yeah, I probably should have just stuck around for like 5 more minutes the last time, because wow, I think I must have expected more. I was expecting the other characters to show up. I was expecting the girl to show up, her friend to show up, the dog to show up. Maybe like they would meet in the forest. Maybe they would hop on the train together. Like there was more of a process to it as opposed to just camp out, train, exit. Because it seemed as if when the idea was presented to the kids at the Christmas fest in town, that it was very clear that the train was going to be the exit from that particular point in the story. It was going to be the path onward to the next episode. Because this is a road journey, and it's not much of a road journey if they're not on the road. That would be a twist. That would be a serious... That would be like a Walking Dead Season 2 twist. And I'm referring to the TV show, not the video game, in which they just end up in a farmhouse for, like, the whole season. Like, they just end up in their grandparents' house for, like, the rest of the game. And it becomes the hub for their missions that they must go on. Because this has suddenly become a traditional Ubisoft open-world game in which they must travel to different towers in order to unlock missions. But no, they're already on the road. They're already heading south. Now, obviously, there are certain things that I'm expecting to happen. I believe they will make it to Mexico, whether they stay in Mexico or not, whether they actually get to Puerto Lobos or whether they see it at a distance. That is still up for grabs. Alternatively, if they don't make it to Mexico, the alternate choice is, what does a superhero need? A superhero needs a villain. Consider the, like Life is Strange 1. I forget her name, but she's given the ability to travel through time. Max. And her supervillain is essentially the end of the world. That is she's presented with that at the beginning of the story, and it is determined that she has to stop the end of the world from happening. That is her main supervillain, but along the way she also has other villains to contend with, and she has to use her ability in order to defeat those villains. So far, Daniel does not have his own specific villain. He does not have a specific thing he's trying to stop. It's just about the boys escaping. So there isn't really any foe other than just the capacity to survive and escape the police that's slowing them down. So that is also an alternative direction that I would imagine the story is going to go towards, is the determination, okay, do they go to Mexico to take care of themselves, or do they fight the villain in order to save others? Does he use the powers to protect himself or his friends? And then also there's the, Sean is talking about how he doesn't want to meet his mother, but I think at this point, that is an very big expectant thing that's going to happen. Whether he likes it or not, he's going to end up in a spot in which he does reunite with his mother and has to confront with why she cut off ties with both his father and along with her parents. Like, why did she just leave everybody? And that would be an expectation as well. If I was going to imagine when that's going to happen, let's say this is 5 episodes, I would imagine that would happen in, like, episode 4. Like, episode 3 is probably still that travel south. Maybe you meet up with those ragtag train hoppers. I would expect, like, it would be about, like, episode 2 is about Daniel trying to understand his powers, and then maybe episode 3 would be about Daniel trying to understand how to use his powers responsibly, how to deal with the idea of choice and consequence. Because throughout episode 2, the choices for when he uses his powers has been up to Sean. He's been letting Sean decide. From the mountain lion all the way to saving Grandpa from the fallen cupboard. Also, I still don't understand why Grandpa has such a huge cupboard to store his art supplies. I'm pretty sure, like, it seems like it might have been like something they bought a long time ago, and they just happened to have, and they're using it for that purpose. But I'm pretty sure he could do with something simpler and not quite so huge and falling apart. Also, his terrible plan in regards to fixing the cupboard led to his own downfall. But to continue with like expectations for episode 3, like, I think that's something that Daniel and Sean might discover when talking to those ragtag train hoppers. I keep calling them the full title of ragtag train hoppers. I can't just call them train hoppers. Is the idea of, like, who are they responsible for? And then in episode 4, I would imagine, assuming this becomes a 5-episode thing, that I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't actually looked. They would reunite with their mother, and then the finale, all roads eventually lead to Porto Lobos. Now, whether Porto Lobos is something that... Now, here's the thing. The dad owns a house there, but it's not clear when was the last time he was there. Is the house still there? Is it still in good shape? Is it still considered owned by their father? And I'm not just talking about despite his death, but also due to the time he spent in the States, away from his home. Did somebody just decide, oh, I'm going to claim this house as my own, and a couple kids aren't going to stop me? Are they going to essentially cut themselves off from their old life entirely? Now, in theory, if they're down in Mexico, they could still access the internet. Would they try to attach them? Will they try to reconnect with the people they left behind? Is it too late for that? Also, I suppose the last remaining question, the Brian Hot Dog Man Finkelstein. Not everybody gets to be called the Hot Dog Man in the crew. I suppose the last question that I might ask is there a scenario in which the boys would manage to stay in the country without being essentially arrested and tried and jailed for murder? Okay, here's the question then. Do you think the boys are guilty of murder? Now, there are 2 deaths. The first is the neighbor in episode 1. The neighbor attacks Daniel. Sean tries to defend himself, shoves the neighbor trips, falls down, lands on his back hitting a large stone that happened to be on the ground, and dies. Is that self-defense? Or is that manslaughter? The second question is Daniel's, because the officer that dies, he dies after Daniel's power suddenly explodes. Daniel sees his dad killed. And after the sight, just the sight of of his dad dying, by the officer's hands, causes Daniel's psychic abilities to explode out of him, knocking the officer into the street. And also, even as I'm discussing that, I still haven't even brought up the idea that this officer shot an unarmed man in the street who was guilty of no crime. That is I guess that's the third question. Are Daniel's actions also in self-defense? Considering that his father committed no crime, did not attack the police officer, and yet the officer still discharged his weapon, killing the father. I guess this shows like the kind of timeliness in which there's the heavy subject matter of Life is Strange 2 really shows to today's landscape is the idea of how culpable are police officers when they make mistakes. But I think a lot of that is a much, much deeper question. That's a much deeper issue than I could possibly tackle in the end credits sequence of episode 2 of Life is Strange 2. That's a topic that a person could make a whole 2-hour documentary about and still only scratch the surface of. So I'm not going to go too deeply into that, only because there is so much to say, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to say half of it off the top of my head. Instead, that's why I'm trying to focus more on the actions of Sean and Daniel. With Daniel, he didn't even know he had those superpowers. Nobody would have known. So I would argue that both of them acted in Sean acted in self-defense, and then Daniel was definitely an accident. And I would imagine that the only way that story ends with a happy ending, where they get to come home, where they get to see their friends again, is if there is a villain that Daniel must fight. If there is a villain that Daniel must fight, and it is a public villain that is putting the world in danger, and Daniel fights him, and he wins, and people recognize that these kids are heroes, that's probably the only way they can easily make their way back. Alternatively, one more thing and then I'll stop. Alternatively, somewhere out on the road, there is Chloe and Max. Max has the ability to go through time. All she has to do is look at a photograph and go to that specific time and place. Could they ask Max to change time for them? Okay, so I threw the snowball properly. Most people threw the snowball at Daniel, those jerks. I scare the cougar off. It's almost half and half for the cougar, but it looks as though Mushroom dies no matter what. Oh, you could throw the snowball at Daniel and at Mushroom. Only 1% of people just threw the snowball, but 14% of people threw it at the dog. Those monsters. Most people prayed with Claire and Daniel. No one prayed as a choice, huh? Pretended I didn't know anything. Oh, there was extra chores. I didn't even notice them. Let's see. He told Daniel he did the right thing after he saved Chris, which he did. Half and half for the laptop. That's interesting. That's always interesting in regards to games that have choices, is when those choices are that like 50% or 56 and 44, when it's a complete like 89% of people prayed with Claire and Daniel. It seems as if there wasn't really much of a struggle behind that choice. I didn't gain Chris's trust. It seems like that might have required more prodding, and I felt I didn't want to prod as a person who didn't know him. And I told Daniel to stop lying. Most people, it looks like more people told him to not stop lying. You didn't draw for Chris. Alright. You bought a Christmas present. Excellent. You had an honest conversation with Charles about his problems. You didn't get involved in Charles' problems. Nope. Also, since I've already left, like, it's not exactly like that would be an issue. Yeah, 82% of people used Daniel's powers. Oh, yep. And if he didn't use his powers, he would have injured his leg. Ooh. And if the cop does, and if there's an option that the cop might chase you, and Chris could have been hit by a car because he considered himself to be a superhero. And that's where that path would have led if you would have lied to him and told him he was a superhero. Daniel did not continue to swear. Good boy. Daniel won the game without cheating. Also nice. Daniel didn't kill the cougar. He was not able to bury Mushroom. I don't remember having an option as to how or why. Maybe if we killed the cougar, we would have had more time. Daniel agreed to pray. He tidied the room. Yeah, he did clean up the room on his own. He obeyed and told Chris about his power. Daniel wasn't asked to tell the truth to Chris. Overall, Daniel was repressed from using his power. This is true. Only use it when it's absolutely necessary. I stayed true to Sean's word in regards to that. Daniel didn't have to save Chris because Chris realized that he didn't have superpowers and the cops didn't know they were there. Daniel didn't blame anyone since Chris was fine. Because if Chris was hit by the car, he would have blamed somebody for his accident. And Daniel got to enjoy his early Christmas presents. Excellent. Oh my.
So, this is it?
Yeah.
It looks like a nettle field. And it stinks.
Yeah. And your stinky feet will cover the smell.
Shut up. They don't.
Come on. I'll show you around.
Yep, they made up with the train hoppers. Thank you for watching. Questions, comments, recommendations for something to play next? Comment down below or send it on over to itsoundedgoodonpaper@gmail.com. That's itsoundedgoodonpaper@gmail.com. So long for now.